The rain was relentless, hammering the cracked asphalt of Brooklyn's backstreets like 1,000 tiny fists, each drop a reminder of the world's indifference. Ezra Cole, soaked to the bone, stood frozen in the alley's mouth, his heart a wild drumbeat against his ribs. He'd seen something he wasn't supposed to, that turned his world upside down in a single, shattering moment. It was supposed to be a quick stop. Ezra, a 24-year-old bartender with a chip on his shoulder and a past he didn't talk about, had been sent to the storage room behind the dive bar where he worked. The manager, a grizzled man named Hank, had barked at him to grab a crate of whiskey before the Friday night rush. Ezra didn't expect to find anyone in the cramped, dimly lit room, let alone him, Liam Harper, the golden boy of the neighborhood, the one everyone adored, the one who was supposed to be straight as an arrow. Liam was there, alone, his back against the wall, his breath ragged. His jeans were unzipped, his hands busy, his eyes closed in a private ecstasy that made Ezra's mouth go dry. For a moment, Ezra couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't tear his eyes away from the sight of Liam, beautiful, untouchable Liam, lost in a moment so raw it felt like a violation to witness. Then Liam's eyes snapped open, locking onto Ezra's, and the world stopped. Ezra, Liam's voice cracked, a mix of shame and panic, his hands fumbling to cover himself. This isn't it's not what it looks like. Ezra's lips curled into a smirk, but it was a mask. Inside, his mind was a storm, anger, desire, and something darker swirled together. He'd spent years hiding who he was, burying his truth under sarcasm and late-night hookups in places no one would remember. And here was Liam, the preacher's son, the guy who dated cheerleaders and charmed everyone with his easy smile, caught in a moment that screamed he was hiding something too. Not what it looks like. Ezra's voice was low, dangerous. He stepped closer, the air between them electric with tension. Then what is it? Liam, you gonna tell me you were just, what? Adjusting yourself? Liam's face flushed crimson, his green eyes wide with fear. Please, he whispered. Don't tell anyone. I'll do anything. Ezra's heart twisted. He'd grown up in a world that punished people like him, people who loved differently, who dared to want what society said they shouldn't. His father had kicked him out at 16. His mother had cried but done nothing, and the scars of those years still burned. He looked at Liam, trembling and vulnerable, and saw a mirror of his own fear, his own shame. But he also saw an opportunity. Anything. Ezra's voice softened, but there was an edge to it. A challenge. He leaned in, close enough to feel the heat radiating from Liam's body. Prove it. Liam swallowed hard, his eyes searching Ezra's face for a lifeline. What do you want? Ezra didn't answer right away. He let the silence stretch, let the weight of the moment press down on them both. He wasn't sure what he wanted: revenge for years of hiding, or something more dangerous, something that could break them both. Meet me here tomorrow night, he said finally. Midnight. Don't be late. Liam nodded, his breath shaky, and Ezra turned to leave, the whiskey crate forgotten. As he stepped back into the rain, he felt a spark ignite inside him, a dangerous, reckless hope that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as alone as he'd always thought. The next night, Ezra waited in the alley, his leather jacket slick with drizzle. The neon sign above the bar flickered, casting jagged shadows across his face. He didn't know if Liam would show, but the thought of him not coming made his chest ache in a way he didn't want to admit. He lit a cigarette, the smoke curling into the damp air, and tried to convince himself he was in control. At 11:59, Liam appeared, his hoodie pulled low over his face. He looked like a man walking to his execution, but there was something else in his eyes: curiosity, maybe, or defiance. I'm here, he said, his voice steadier than the night before. What do you want from me? Ezra. Ezra exhaled a plume of smoke. Studying Liam like a puzzle he wasn't sure he wanted to solve. I want the truth, he said. No more lies. No more hiding. You owe me that much. Liam's jaw tightened. You don't know what it's like, he said, his voice low but fierce. My dad'd kill me. The church. This whole damn town. They'd turn on me. Ezra laughed. A bitter sound. You think I don't know? I've been out since I was a kid. Liam. I've taken the punches. The slurs. The nights sleeping on the street because my family didn't want me. You don't get to play the victim here. Liam flinched. But he didn't back down. I'm not like you, he said. I can't just be that. I don't know how. Ezra stepped closer, his cigarette forgotten, glowing faintly on the ground. Then let me show you, he said, his voice softer now, almost a plea. Let me show you what it's like to stop running. For a moment, they stood there, inches apart, the rain a soft curtain around them. Then Liam reached out, his hand trembling, and touched Ezra's arm. It was a small gesture, but it felt like a seismic shift, a crack in the walls they'd both built around themselves. Okay, Liam whispered. Show me. Over the next few weeks, Ezra and Liam met in secret alleys, abandoned lots, the back of Ezra's beat-up van. Each meeting was a tightrope walk between fear and longing. Every stolen glance and brush of hands a rebellion against the world that told them they were wrong. Ezra taught Liam how to navigate the shadows, how to find the places where people like them could exist without judgment. But it wasn't just about hiding. It was about discovering each other, discovering themselves. Ezra learned that Liam wasn't just the perfect son of a preacher. He was funny, sharp, and carried a quiet strength that made Ezra's heart race. Liam learned that Ezra's tough exterior hid a man who loved poetry, who wrote in a battered notebook he kept hidden under his mattress. They talked about everything: dreams, fears, the lives they wanted but didn't know how to claim. And with every conversation, every touch, the walls between them crumbled. But secrets have a way of unraveling. One night, as they sat in Ezra's van, Liam's phone buzzed. It was his father, Pastor Harper, demanding to know where he was. Liam's face went pale, and Ezra felt a cold dread settle in his gut. He's been watching me, Liam said, his voice barely above a whisper. He knows something's up. Ezra reached for Liam's hand, squeezing it tightly. We'll figure this out, he said, though he wasn't sure he believed it. Together. Liam looked at him, his eyes shining with unshed tears. I don't want to lose you, he said, but I don't know if I'm strong enough for this. Ezra pulled him close, their foreheads touching, their breaths mingling in the small space. You are, he said fiercely, and I'm not going anywhere. But as they held each other, the rain pounding on the roof of the van, Ezra couldn't shake the feeling that the world was closing in, ready to tear apart everything they'd built. The bar was a haze of cigarette smoke and laughter, but Ezra barely noticed. His shift dragged on, each clink of glasses and shout from the jukebox a reminder of the secret burning a hole in his chest. Liam was out there, somewhere, wrestling with a truth that could destroy him. And Ezra was stuck pouring shots for strangers. He hadn't seen Liam since the night in the van, 3 days ago, when Liam's phone had lit up with his father's name. Liam had promised to text, to meet again, but his messages had been short, clipped, laced with fear. Ezra tried to focus on the bottles behind the counter, but his mind kept replaying Liam's trembling voice, his desperate confession, I don't know if I'm strong enough for this. Around midnight, the bar's door swung open, and Ezra's heart lurched. It wasn't Liam, it was Sarah, Liam's older sister. Her face tight with worry. She pushed through the crowd, her eyes locking onto Ezra's. "We need to talk," she said, her voice low but urgent. Ezra wiped his hands on a rag and nodded toward the back. They slipped into the storage room, the same place where everything had started. Sarah didn't waste time. "Liam's in trouble," she said, her words sharp. "Dad found something on his phone texts. I think he's losing it. Ezra, he's talking about sending Liam away to some camp." Ezra's stomach dropped. He'd heard about those places, conversion camps, where kids like them were sent to be fixed. The thought of Liam, with his soft smile and fierce heart, being broken down in a place like that made Ezra's blood boil. "Where is he now?" he asked, his voice tight. "Locked in his room," Sarah said. "Dad's got him under watch. I only got out because I said I was going to Bible study." She paused, her eyes searching Ezra's face. "He told me about you. Not everything, but enough. He's scared, but he loves you, Ezra. He's never said that about anyone before." Ezra's throat tightened. Love. The word felt like a blade, sharp and beautiful. He'd never let himself hope for it. Not really. But hearing it from Sarah, knowing Liam felt it too, made something fierce and protective flare inside him. "I'm getting him out," he said, the decision made before he could second-guess it. "Tonight." Sarah grabbed his arm. "You don't understand. Dad's got connections, cops, church people. If you get caught, I don't care." Ezra snapped, pulling away. "I'm not letting them take him." Sarah studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll help. But you need a plan, Ezra. You can't just storm in." By 2 a.m., Ezra and Sarah had a plan, shaky as it was. Sarah would distract their father with a fake emergency call about a sick church member while Ezra slipped into the Harper house through the back. Liam's room was on the second floor, but there was a trellis he could climb. It was risky, reckless, but Ezra didn't care. He'd spent too long running from his own heart to let Liam face this alone. The Harper house was a looming Victorian on the edge of town, its white paint peeling under the weight of years. Ezra parked his van a block away, his pulse hammering as he crept through the shadows. The trellis creaked under his weight, but it held, and soon he was at Liam's window, tapping softly. Liam's face appeared, pale and drawn, his eyes red from crying. He pushed the window open, his voice a whisper. "Ezra, what are you doing here?" "Getting you out," Ezra said, climbing inside. The room was small, cluttered with books and posters of bands Liam loved but could never play too loud. "Pack a bag. We're leaving." Liam froze, his eyes wide. "Leaving? To where?" "Anywhere but here," Ezra said, his voice fierce. "You don't belong in a place that wants to break you." For a moment, Liam looked like he might argue, but then he nodded, grabbing a backpack and shoving clothes and a notebook inside. Ezra's heart ached at the sight. Liam, the boy who'd always seemed so untouchable, was choosing him, choosing this, despite everything. They were halfway down the trellis when a light snapped on downstairs. Pastor Harper's voice boomed through the house, sharp and angry. "Liam, where are you?" Panic seized Ezra's chest, but he grabbed Liam's hand, pulling him toward the van. They ran, the night air cold against their skin, the sound of Pastor Harper's shouts fading behind them. They tumbled into the van, Ezra gunning the engine as they sped into the darkness. "Where are we going?" Liam asked, his voice shaking but steady. Ezra glanced at him, his heart swelling at the sight of Liam's determined face. "Somewhere we can be us," he said. "Somewhere safe." They drove for hours, the city giving way to endless highways and starlit fields. Liam fell asleep in the passenger seat, his head resting against the window, and Ezra kept stealing glances at him, memorizing the curve of his jaw, the way his lashes fluttered in sleep. For the first time in years, Ezra felt like he was moving toward something, not just running away. They stopped at a diner just before dawn, the kind of place where the coffee was strong and the waitresses didn't ask questions. Over greasy eggs and toast, Liam finally spoke. "I've never done anything like this," he said, his voice soft. "I've always followed the rules, done what Dad wanted. But with you, I feel like I'm finally awake." Ezra reached across the table, his fingers brushing Liam's. "You're braver than you think," he said, "and you're not alone anymore." Liam smiled, a real smile, the kind that made Ezra's chest ache with hope. But even as they sat there, hands intertwined, Ezra couldn't shake the feeling that their escape was only the beginning. Pastor Harper wouldn't let Liam go so easily, and the world wasn't kind to people like them. The motel room smelled of mildew and cheap air freshener. But to Ezra and Liam, it was a sanctuary. They'd driven across state lines, landing in a small town in Pennsylvania where no one knew their names. The single bed creaked under their weight as they sat side by side, the weight of their decision settling over them like dust. "I keep waiting for him to find us," Liam said, his voice barely above a whisper. He was staring at the faded floral wallpaper, his hands twisting in his lap. "Dad's not the kind of man who gives up." Ezra pulled him close, his arm wrapping around Liam's shoulders. "He won't find us here," he said, though he wasn't sure he believed it. "We'll keep moving if we have to. I've got you." Liam leaned into him, his warmth a quiet anchor in the storm of Ezra's thoughts. They'd been running for 2 days now, living off cash Ezra had saved from tips and the little Liam had managed to grab. But money wasn't the problem, not yet. The problem was the fear in Liam's eyes, the way he flinched at every loud noise, the way he kept checking his phone even though he'd turned it off. "I want to be like you," Liam said suddenly, his voice breaking. "You're so sure of yourself. You don't care what anyone thinks." Ezra laughed softly, the sound tinged with bitterness. "You think I'm sure? Liam, I'm terrified half the time. I just got good at faking it." Liam turned to face him, his eyes searching. "Then why do this? Why risk everything for me?" Ezra's breath caught. He'd asked himself the same question 100 times, but the answer was always the same. "Because you're worth it," he said, his voice raw. "Because when I saw you in that storage room, I saw someone who felt the same way I did, scared, but alive. I couldn't walk away from that." Liam's eyes softened, and he leaned in, their lips meeting in a kiss that was equal parts desperation and hope. It wasn't their first kiss, but it felt like it knew. Electric. A promise they were both afraid to keep. The next morning, they hit the road again, heading west. Ezra had a friend in Chicago, a guy named Marcus who ran a queer-friendly bar and might let them crash for a while. It was a long shot, but it was something. As they drove, Liam started to open up, sharing stories of his childhood sneaking comic books into church, dreaming of being a musician, hiding who he was even from himself. Ezra listened, his heart swelling with every word, and shared his own stories, poems he'd written, fights he'd survived, the nights he'd spent staring at the stars, wondering if he'd ever find a place to belong. They were halfway through Ohio when trouble found them. Ezra had stopped at a gas station, Liam inside grabbing snacks, when a black SUV pulled up, its windows tinted. Ezra's gut twisted as 2 men stepped out, their faces hard, their clothes too neat for a place like this. One of them held a photo, Liam's high school yearbook picture. "You seen this kid?" the man asked, his voice clipped. Ezra's heart pounded. But he kept his face neutral. "Nope," he said, leaning against the van. "Just passing through." The man studied him, his eyes narrowing. "You sure?" His family's worried. Preacher's kid. Ran off with some troublemaker. Ezra's blood ran cold. But he forced a shrug. "Don't know him. Sorry." The men exchanged a glance, then got back in their SUV and drove off. Ezra didn't breathe until they were out of sight. When Liam returned, his arms full of chips and soda, Ezra grabbed him and pulled him into the van. "We need to move," he said, his voice tight. "Now." Liam's face paled as Ezra explained what had happened. "They're looking for me," he whispered. "Dad sent them." Ezra gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. "They won't find you," he said, more to himself than to Liam. "I won't let them." They reached Chicago by nightfall, the city's skyline a jagged promise against the horizon. Marcus welcomed them with open arms, his bar a haven of laughter and music, a place where Ezra and Liam could blend into the crowd. For the first time in days, they felt safe enough to breathe. Marcus gave them a small apartment above the bar, a cramped space with a single window overlooking the street. That night, as they lay together on a mattress on the floor, Liam traced the scars on Ezra's knuckles, remnants of fights he'd never talk about. "I want to stay here," Liam said softly. "With you." Ezra kissed his forehead, his heart aching with a mix of hope and fear. "We will," he said. "We'll make it work." But even as he said the words, Ezra knew it wouldn't be that simple. The men at the gas station were a warning, a reminder that the world wasn't done with them yet. And as much as he wanted to believe they could outrun it, he couldn't shake the feeling that their past was catching up. Chicago was a city of second chances. But Ezra and Liam learned quickly that freedom came with a price. They settled into their new life above Marcus's bar, Ezra picking up shifts as a bartender, Liam helping with inventory and dreaming of music. For a while, it felt like they'd carved out a space where they could be themselves. No questions asked. But the past doesn't let go so easily. One night, as Ezra was closing up the bar, he saw them again, the black SUV, parked across the street. His heart sank. But he didn't tell Liam. He didn't want to shatter the fragile hope they'd built. Instead, he started keeping a closer eye on the streets, watching for shadows that didn't belong. Liam, meanwhile, was coming into his own. He started playing guitar at the bar's open mic nights, his voice raw and beautiful, drawing crowds that hung on his every note. Ezra watched from behind the counter, his chest swelling with pride, but also with fear. Liam was shining brighter every day, and bright things attract attention. One evening, after a particularly electric performance, a man approached Liam. He was older, polished, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You've got talent, kid," he said, handing Liam a business card. "I'm with a record label. We could make you a star." Liam's eyes lit up, but Ezra's gut twisted. He pulled Liam aside later, his voice low. "You don't know this guy? Liam, be careful." Liam frowned, his excitement dimming. "You don't trust anyone, do you?" "It's not about trust," Ezra said, his voice tight. "It's about keeping you safe." Liam softened, reaching for Ezra's hand. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "Not without you." But the man from the record label wasn't the only one watching. A week later, Ezra spotted Pastor Harper himself outside the bar, his face a mask of righteous fury. Ezra's blood ran cold. He grabbed Liam and pulled him into the back, explaining in hushed tones what he'd seen. "We can't keep running," Liam said, his voice breaking. "I'm tired. Ezra, I just want a life with you." Ezra's heart ached, but he nodded. Then we face him, he said. Together. The confrontation came sooner than they expected. Pastor Harper stormed into the bar the next night, his presence silencing the room. Liam stood frozen, his guitar still in his hands, as his father's voice cut through the air. You're coming home. Liam. This ends now. Ezra stepped forward, placing himself between Liam and his father. He's not going anywhere, he said, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. He's not your property. Pastor Harper's eyes narrowed, his voice dripping with venom. You're the one who corrupted him. He spat. You'll burn for this. Liam stepped forward, his hand finding Ezra's. I'm not corrupted, he said, his voice shaking but clear. I'm in love, and I'm not ashamed of it anymore. The words hung in the air, a declaration that felt like a revolution. The crowd watched in silence, some with shock, others with quiet support. Pastor Harper's face twisted with rage. But before he could speak, Marcus stepped in, his voice calm but firm. You're in my bar, Pastor. You don't get to make the rules here. Outnumbered and out of his element, Pastor Harper backed down, but not before delivering a final warning. This isn't over, he said, his eyes locked on Liam. You'll regret this. As he left, the bar erupted in applause, strangers offering Liam and Ezra nods of encouragement. For the first time, Liam didn't look away. He squeezed Ezra's hand, his eyes shining with tears but also with strength. In the weeks that followed, Ezra and Liam built a life they never thought possible. Liam kept playing music, his songs carrying the weight of their journey fear, love, and the courage to be themselves. Ezra started writing again, his poems filling notebooks with words he'd once been too afraid to say. They weren't naive. They knew the world still held dangers, that not everyone would accept them. But they had each other, and they had a community, Marcus. The bar regulars, even Sarah, who sent letters filled with love and apologies for not doing more. One night, as they stood on the roof of their apartment, the city sprawling beneath them, Liam turned to Ezra. I was so scared that night you found me, he said, but I'm not anymore. You showed me what it means to be free. Ezra pulled him close, their lips meeting under the stars. You showed me what it means to be home, he said, and as they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, they knew that whatever came next, they'd face it together not as outcasts, but as two people who'd found love in a world that tried to tell them it was wrong. Their story wasn't just about surviving. It was about thriving, about claiming a life that was theirs, unapologetically.